Stark from Watch Our Past, and today I'm going to talk about the Dutch film Tailgate, or I think it was originally called Bumperkleef, which is releasing in theaters, virtual cinema, and VOD on July 30th, 2021 from my friends at Film Movement. And Film Movement is they're a distributor of independent and foreign films. They have really great selections, and so I was kind of surprised that a horror film came through. But it's a Dutch horror film, so it kind of fits their distribution model, and it's a pretty well done film. I'm going to talk about a little bit about the film. Three things I liked, three things I didn't like about the movie, and then talk a little bit about the ending. So in Tailgate, you have this family. It's a father, a mother, and two young girls. They get in the car for a trip to grandma's house. They're going to go to, I believe, the dad's parents for lunch or dinner, probably dinner. And so they're driving, and on the way, they get behind this white van who's going the speed limit next to a giant truck. So if you've ever driven anywhere, you've had this situation where you're behind a car and they're both going the speed limit, and you really want to pass because maybe you're in a hurry, but it's kind of tough, and you get a little annoyed because the person, they're technically going the speed limit, so they're not doing anything wrong, but they are because they're impeding the flow of traffic. So he gets a little angry. He tailgates him, he honks. Eventually, the van brake checks him, and this is also probably a good place to tell you that I'm going to get into spoilers about the film. So if you don't want to know anything about the film, go to read the review on watchyourpass.com. It's spoiler free. It's more generic. Or watch the film and then come back and watch this video review. Or if you don't care, just let's go on and I can tell you more about the film. So the van brakes checks him, so he almost causes an accident. They get a little bit heated, and so eventually they were able to pass the van. The dad gives him the eye and whatnot, and they go along their way, and they stop to get gas. And when they're there, this large imposing man who presumably drives the van goes up to them and starts he tells the kids that he kind of, he is very toxic. He tells the kid that their father was driving terribly, and also that the food that his mother is getting them, or that their mother is getting them, is going to give them cancer and things like that. So he's definitely an antagonizing character. And the dad, it doesn't help. He kind of comes off with some bravado and tries to essentially pick a fight with him. He's understandably upset, but the dad doesn't come off in a great light. And then they continue on their way, and they notice the van follows them more, and then the van gets more aggressive, and things happen. It's a horror movie. You can kind of imagine what happens next. But they do eventually make it to the grandparents' house, but they have an ordeal along the way. So the three things I liked about this film, the first is the cast. I mean, the cast it's a small film. There aren't a lot of characters, and I liked them all except the dad. The dad kind of sucked, but he did a good job. I just didn't like his character. But the mom is very, she's good. She's kind of the more reasonable of the parents. And so she yells at him for doing things that he probably shouldn't do. But I think the really good addition is the kids. The kids add a certain amount of fear to this, because if it was just the parents, that would be scary. But when the kids are involved, you're worried about their safety, and they do a really good job of introducing some of the desperation that they feel as this man is pursuing them and as things get crazier. So they do a really, really nice job of helping to give some more gravity to the situation. And the second thing I really liked is the daylight setting. I mean, you expect in a film like this, they would be driving, and then it would turn to night and they'd be on the road, and you'd see the lights of a van behind flash. That would be kind of your typical horror setup. But in this film, it pretty much all takes place in the day, which I thought was interesting, to have a sinister type movie in the day. I know that the day is not unique, but I thought it was an interesting take to have all these horrible things take place in broad daylight. The tailgate, the van driver does a good job of dressing up in this poison control outfit whenever he's outside, so he can't be recognized. And also it looks like maybe he's just spraying for weed when he's actually spraying poison on people. So I thought the day setting was also just a nice touch. And the last thing is the sense of dread. I mean, this film has a lot of buildup, and a lot of that is because you're following behind this car, and then you brake checks. You're not sure if there's going to be an accident, or they're driving and they see the car behind, and even their evasive maneuvers, the car follows. I mean, it's kind of your typical setup for a type, this type of a film where a car is following another car, and no matter what they can do, they can't shake him. But it does have a good sense of dread because it takes so long to get to kind of the meat of the film. There's a lot of buildup before the man actually attacks. And so that kind of buildup was a nice touch, because it did really make you feel almost helpless, because these people are trying to get away from this person and they can't. So the things I didn't like, the dad, and the actor who plays the dad did a good job in the performance. I just didn't like him. He felt too kind of ostentatious, too kind of machismo. He tried to pick a fight, and he was, he kind of was an asshole in a lot of these instances. And so I didn't like his character. I thought that the van driver was in the wrong in a lot of aspects, but the dad didn't help the situation, and he wasn't the nicest person, and so that kind of threw me off. But maybe that was part of the point. Maybe he had to be kind of a jerk to have a reason for the van driver to teach him a lesson. That goes me into my second point. The second thing I didn't love is the killer's motivation. It seems like this person, I can't tell if he actually wants to like stop people from being bad drivers, or if he just needs an excuse, because in the start of the film, he does kill someone, presumably for doing something bad. Either he's on a bike, so maybe he did something bad on a bike. I'm not 100% sure. It doesn't really tell you. But basically, he waits for them to apologize. And when they finally do apologize, he says, oh, the time is over, apologies is over, and then he kills them. But it sounds like his motivation is to prevent people from driving horribly, or to make them learn the error of their ways. But then when they do finally learn the error of their ways, he still kills them. So I didn't really get his motivation. He definitely provokes them. He definitely seems to have some sort of justice component. But then I think he also just likes to kill people, which was weird. And then, there's also a scene later where he tells the kids like, oh, this isn't your fault. He doesn't hurt them. But before that, he's already like sprayed poison in their car and like tried to hurt them. So his whole motivation is a little weak, I think, in this point. And I'll go into a little bit more of that in the ending. The third thing I didn't like is the cultural differences. There were a few cultural references that I don't think would sit in an American film. And that's not to say that this film should be censored. I'm just saying that this film has some statements that probably wouldn't sit too well in an American film. And I wasn't sure, maybe they could have changed the subtitles a little bit to kind of adjust it to the market. Although, then they're changing the film. So I'm not sure what the right thing would be, but there's there's one instance where they're saying, why is this person a bad driver? And the dad says, because it's a woman, and the kids pipe up too. And I thought that was like, that was just, that wasn't an acceptable thing to say. And it also felt antiquated. And then later, he's talking about why the man is angry. He's like, well, because he's just he's a weak man at home. His wife dominates him, and he doesn't get any respect, so he has to come out here. And then, again, that didn't feel like something that would fly in American cinema. But I don't really know what the answer is, because I don't really necessarily want them to censor a film if it comes to America. But maybe have a second subtitle track that has a few slight tweaks, like a new translation. I don't know. I'm not sure how you would do that, but that's just something that didn't really sit well with me when I was watching it. And the fourth thing, there are four things, is the ending. And I'm going to go into that right now. But the ending, I didn't really love the ending. And so in the ending, it was kind of a letdown. So basically, after the van is stalking the family, he gets the dad's phone when the dad like goes to confront him. He grabs his phone, and then he tries to kill them, but they escape. But he uses the phone to get the dad's parents' address. And he goes to the parents' house, and he goes in there, and he basically, in his calm way, like, he never actually gets super upset. He has a very calm demeanor, but in his calm way, he basically says like, well, isn't it your fault that you raised him to be such a bad person, a bad driver? And then he kind of attacks the parents and locks them in their room upstairs, essentially lying in wait until the family gets there. The family eventually gets there. They come inside. They find it kind of odd that no one's there, but they've had an ordeal. They just want to get to the parents' house and sit down and kind of relax. And then when they're there, they realize that the parents are locked in the upstairs bedroom, and the dad sees the man. He's in his poison outfit. He's got his poison wand, and he sprays him with some poison. And the dad runs out. He tries to get out, and then the killer follows him outside and then kind of disappears. The dad runs back around to the house. The whole family at this point is upstairs in the upstairs bedroom. They've locked and barricaded the door, so they can't open the door. But he climbs up through a window to get into this room. And then when he gets into the room, the killer's nowhere to be seen. but he has this poison on him. He has this really, these really well done kind of like welts on his face and arms from the poison. And so he goes in the shower and showers off. And then the film kind of ends there. The killer doesn't eventually appear. This sequence ends, I guess. The cops come, they search the house. The kids are in, I think, a cop car, a cop van. And as the parents are kind of being talked to, the van door opens and it's the killer, the man, and he takes off his mask and he basically tells the kids, like, this is not your fault, like this is your parents' fault, you were not the cause of this. And then he goes away, which again, I thought that was kind of weird that he's sparing them now when before he tried to kill them, and also that he would even bring that up to the kids. And then later, what you see the scene where the dad is walking his kids to school. We don't know why. I mean, maybe it's a close walk. Maybe he's so, shaken by this incident that he decides to walk. But he's walking his kids to school, and then he drops them off. He's clearly terrified of the man still because he's very, very concerned about the kids when they're leaving. And he's walking back home, and as he's walking, a van pulls onto the sidewalk behind him and starts to accelerate. And then the movie ends, and you hear like a thud. So the man presumably kills him. But again, if his motivation is to prevent the guy from driving recklessly, then he seems to have already succeeded because the guy was walking. He wasn't driving. I would think if you wanted to teach him a lesson, he would run him off the road or something like that to try to prevent him from driving. I mean, I thought that maybe a change to his character would have been, maybe he incapacitates them so they can't drive. I don't know exactly what that would do. Like, break his fingers so he can't drive stick, although I think it was an automatic car, or maybe cut off one of his legs, his like right leg, so he can't actually drive, like something like that, where he permanently stops him from driving because he's such a bad driver and he wants to prevent this harm on the road, would be something. But the fact that he killed him after he had already stopped driving and after he kind of learned his lesson, it just felt kind of odd. And the fact that he just disappeared after the whole home incident, after he kind of had the entire family where he wanted them, they were all in one room, this would have been the perfect instance for him to then use his poison gun and like spray the room and capture everyone, or even spray the room, break in and get the dad and pull him out if he didn't want to kill the whole family. So the ending just felt kind of a mixed bag. It was a little bit of a letdown. And overall, the film is fine. It's a good horror movie, but I don't think it didn't really do anything exceptionally well. And there were a few quirks that kind of didn't sit well with me. So I think ultimately the film is a rental. I gave it a rent on my website, which means, don't necessarily go out and see it immediately. If you see it later down the road for, a cheaper rental, sure. Or if you see it streaming later, it's definitely something that you might want to watch. But it's not something that you just definitely have to go see now. So that was Tailgate, which is releasing in theaters, virtual cinema, and on VOD on July 30th, 2021. And thank you so much for watching. If you liked this review, please like and subscribe to this channel. It helps me a lot and make sure all my new content goes straight to you. Thank you.